President Biden is in the Middle East, where he will soon visit the West Bank and then Saudi Arabia after meeting leaders in Israel. A major topic of conversation between Mr. Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid has been what to do about Iran's nuclear program. CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe is traveling with the president and joins me now from Jerusalem. So, Ed, tell us a little bit about how the president addressed this issue with Iran while he is there in Israel.
Ben, good to see you traveling on this journey with a few people who've traveled with you on previous presidential trips abroad. They say hello. Here in Israel today, his final full day in the country, he signed what's called the Jerusalem Declaration, an agreement between the United States and Israel on several issues, but most especially on working together to stop Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. It may not be exactly what the Israelis were hoping for. They may have wanted to hear him talk a little more about the possibility of using U.S. military force to stop Iran, but it is an agreement nonetheless that has been signed, and it's pretty explicit in once again saying the United States will work with Israel, which is gravely concerned about the threat of Iran, to stop them and their nuclear ambitions. Throughout this entire trip that continues into the weekend in Saudi Arabia, it's designed to get countries in this region opposed or sort of on a footing against Iran as it continues to do what it's doing, and notably comes just a few days before the Russian president, Vladimir Putin's headed to Tehran to talk to leaders there about a host of issues, including Iran's decision to give Russia unmanned aerial vehicles for use in the war in Ukraine.
So the president's going to soon meet with Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas. What does President Biden hope to accomplish with that meeting?
Well, a few things. First of all, he's going into Palestinian-controlled parts of Jerusalem and this region tomorrow without Israeli officials at his side. They made that request that they be with him, in part because, of course, Israel and the United States recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. He's going into East Jerusalem, part of the city they believe they should be with him. The White House said no, the president will go alone. It's a private visit to a Palestinian hospital, followed by meetings in Bethlehem with the Palestinian president. They'll be handing out millions in U.S. aid to Palestinian hospitals and some other agreements designed to restore U.S.-Palestinian relations to what they kind of were before the Trump administration, which, of course, pulled back much of the relationship. And it's also designed to at least nominally nod to the president's aspiration that there be a two-state solution here, that the Palestinian people have their own country, Israel have theirs. It's an issue that is stalled right now, has been for several years, and will continue to be certainly at least probably through the end of this year, given that Israel is working on coming up with a new coalition government with the November elections. And there's still grave concern in this region and here in Israel that the Palestinian leadership is just too corrupt and weak to pull it off. Either way, symbolic that he makes this visit, especially right before going to Saudi Arabia, where inevitably the issue will get raised by some of the Gulf state leaders that he'll be meeting with.
And Ed, so let's talk about that trip to Saudi Arabia. The president's going to head there on Friday. He's going to meet with the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. U.S. intelligence found he ordered the killing of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi. So what has the president said about this in this kind of controversial leg of his trip?
He was asked about this today in a news conference, whether he would bring up the Khashoggi case directly with Saudi leaders. He would not say. What he said generally is that he always raises concerns about human rights when meeting with leaders of countries that have records that are, marked by those concerns, and that his position on Khashoggi generally is well established. Remember, during the presidential campaign as a candidate, he called Saudi Arabia a pariah state, said he would isolate the country in response to what it did, but killing the prominent Saudi critic and Washington Post columnist. But today also conceding as president now that the U.S. has no choice but to engage Saudi Arabia. They're a player in this region. And to not do so is to potentially keep the United States from having the influence it would prefer to have here and having that vacuum filled by Russia, which again is visiting Iran next week, and China, which has made significant investment in this region, especially in the infrastructure realm. So going to this regional conference that the Saudis are hosting on Saturday to meet with the leaders of Qatar, Kuwait, Iraq, Jordan, Egypt, plus Saudi Arabia, holding meetings with the Saudi royal family Friday night after he arrives, all designed to remind them the United States is a partner and should be their lead partner, at least when it comes to global superpowers.
And of course, the other subtext here as he's visiting Saudi Arabia, of course, is gas prices. What is kind of the overall purpose of this visit for the White House?
Well, it's, again, to do all those things to maintain U.S. supremacy in the region, but underlying it, and certainly of concern to people back home, is what's he going to say to them about gas prices? Can they boost oil production and help drive down the cost overall? Or is there something else that can be assured by having this meeting? If he walks away from this and goes home with no sense that the Saudis understand the pain at the pump and are going to work with OPEC to boost production to keep the prices down, even though we're seeing prices go down and demand go down in part because of the high prices, the president could take it on the chin back home. The White House knows that. They're going to have to come up with some kind of an answer for it. Whether he's going to explicitly say to the Saudis, please boost production, it'll help me. And if you do that, I'll give you some, whether there's going to be some kind of quid pro quo, we don't quite know. But inevitably, I think we know, we can appreciate that a lot of Americans will be wondering, if you came over here, you held these meetings, and you didn't bring it up, why not? And there could be some political pain to pay.
All right, Ed O'Keefe, thank you so much, and please say hi to our mutual friends on Team CBS.
Take care.